Hey, what's up, everybody? So, in the spirit of October and Halloween coming up, I figured I'd give some recommendations on some movies and television episodes and so forth to check out. And I figured I'd start off with one that's probably lesser known, unless you're a real, hardcore fan when it comes to horror. And that comes from a series that was on Showtime in the earlier part of the beginning of the 2000s. And that is Masters of Horror, which is kind of a like a 2-season series, which each episode was directed by a well-known horror director, and some of them did multiple episodes. So you had guys like Tobe Hooper, Dario Argento, I think Takeshi Miike from Japanese J-horror fame also did one. John Landis did one. Tom Holland also did one. And of course, Mr. John Carpenter, who directed and created the one I'm going to talk about. And that is John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. And to me, it's the best episode of the whole series by far. It stars Udo Kier and Norman Reedus, I guess would be the most popular of the two actors in it. Udo Kier obviously is a character actor that's been around for a long time. He always does a great job. And Norman Reedus, of course, if you're familiar with the Walking Dead series, he plays, I believe, Daryl, I think, is the character in that. I haven't really watched that show very much, but he also was one of the two main leads in the Boondock Saints. So, yeah, good actor. And an interesting concept. Basically, I'm not going to spoil it. This is not a review. This is just a kind of a recommendation. Basically, he plays a guy that's, or Reedus plays a guy that's, really into film and cinema, and ends up being the owner of a theater, but he's in a lot of debt, so he has like a kind of a side job where he hunts down rare prints of movies that collectors are looking for, and gets quite a good deal of money for him, but he's in quite a bit of debt, like I said. So he finally takes a job from Udo Kier's character, who is kind of a recluse and kind of an eccentric guy that has this collection of of films that kind of is second to none, and most of which are kind of dedicated to, graphic imagery and, the horror genre, basically the best of the best of, rare and obscure, indie films that, maybe one or two people have ever seen. And, and he's looking for the creme de la creme. He's looking for that, the holy grail or unholy grail, you could say, of the horror cinema, which is a film called Le Fin Absolu du Monde, which is in English is translated "The Absolute End of the World," by a very obscure filmmaker that had the film had apparently had been aired at one premiere, and all hell broke loose, and then allegedly the film itself was destroyed. And the director, I believe, who I'm not sure what his name is, or what kind of a ethnicity it is, but his name was Hans Bakovic, and he was kind of a notorious director who tried to kind of do more commercial horror type stuff, and it was and then eventually kind of happened upon an idea, let's say, of creating like the ultimate kind of horrific imagery, kind of like a film that would purposely cause a violent reaction in his audience members. And so Norman Reedus's character basically takes the job, and this kind of leads him on a kind of a hunt for this elusive copy of La Fin Absolue du Monde. And the more he gets into the search, the more obsessive he becomes. So it's almost like once, you start on looking for this film, you're basically marked by it, or what you could say. And it's like, the obsession continues to grow until, you either find it or you don't. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kind of a commentary both on the kind of the kind of slam, I guess, on Hollywood, and also kind of discusses the what film is, the kind of purpose it serves, as as a visual medium, and what in the right or wrong hands, however you'd like to view it, can be used as a weapon, which we obviously we see with propaganda and whatnot. So, but this is kind of like the ultimate film when it comes to like I don't know, kind of showing a reflection of everything horrific about the world, but that this one guy interprets. But like I said, the film itself is kind of a mystery. What it exactly contains is a mystery. Whether or not all the rumors about it are true or not, we don't know. But it's kind of it's a neat little kind of a mystery, I guess, in a way. The search for this kind of this film. That watching it may be something you can't unwatch in a sense. And of course, Norman Reedus's character has his own kind of past, his own demons and regrets about the past, that kind of what has happened to him prior to the present story, that kind of interweave their memories and everything into his search for this film. So. A lot of some good from a horror standpoint. Definitely has the horror elements, the supernatural, some of the blood and violence, but also some philosophical questions, and puts forth some notions about guilt, human guilt, and and regret, and holding on to I guess things from the past to the point where they become an obsession that you can't get away from, and things like that. So yeah, it's only like, I think it's like an hour ish. They weren't full length films, so it's just around an hour, but it's it's great. I don't, it's kind of one of those films where you see it the first time will have the strongest impact on you. But afterwards, it's definitely something that you can watch over and over again, just to enjoy how it unrolls, and or how everything develops, and and the ending and everything. So it's got that visceral appeal to it that people that like more violent horror, because it's John Carpenter. Also, but the story itself is interesting, and like I said, it creates the kind of this build up to this legendary film that may or may not exist, that has most. So like I said, it'd be like the pinnacle of horror film or horror cinema. That this collector, that played by Udo Kier, wants to get his hands on. It's like he's obsessed too. He's like, he has to see this film, no matter what it takes, before he dies. It's like his life won't be fulfilled until, because he's like I said, his whole collection and what he watches is just horrific imagery, extreme imagery of violence and whatever, human depravity. So he's kind of become a bit jaded, I would think, from it. So this film's going to be like the last kind of thing that he wants to see before, he meets his maker. So yeah, definitely recommend it. It's John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. It's the 8th episode of season 1 of Masters of Horror, which is the name of the series. I'm not I know you can get it on DVD and Blu-ray. I think you can buy individual episodes or buy like I think it might come in threes. I'm not sure if Netflix or any of these other ones will have it, so I would check that out as well. But yeah, if you're a fan of John Carpenter's, yeah, you got to watch it. Like I said, John Carpenter is from when it comes to American horror, is my favorite director, by far. And he's right up. I mean, him and like I said, Dario Argento is another favorite of mine. When it comes to European horror makers, so they're side by side when it comes to my absolute favorite. But John Carpenter's, like I said, he kind of put out some films in the 90s that were kind of ho hum. I think and then this one came out and I was like, man, where have you been all this time? So yeah, check it out. John Carpenter's Cigarette Burns. All right, guys. Check that one out and let me know in the comments whether you liked it or not. And I'll be back with another recommendation very soon. Take it easy.